Hello, good morning, everyone. I am almost out of water. I need to go fill up. I should just make it a habit to drink all of this every day and fill it up every day. That would be a good habit to have. Hi, so my name is Kent C. Dodds, and I'm excited to talk with you about testing React applications. That's what we're reviewing today as part of our review of all of the workshops from EpicReact. So I'm excited to go through this with you, and yeah, I'll just pop this open. So if you are not yet familiar, EpicReact.Dev is a place where you can learn how to confidently ship well-architected, production-ready React apps like a pro. That's a bit of a mouthful, but there it is. And we are currently going through a 20% discount, so definitely pick that up as soon as you can. Today we're going to be talking about the Testing React Apps workshop. Yeah, it's going to be great. If you're like totally like, what the devil is this? Then check out the tour of Epic React right here on the homepage. This is basically a 3-credit course from like a college. That's what you should be comparing this to. This is like a semester-long course that'll take you all through React. So it's a big thing, and that's why I'm doing these deep dives. So here's our live stream for tomorrow. It's going to be a review of the React Suspense module, and the one for today is testing React apps. So yeah, let's take a look at that. Oh my goodness, I just have to keep scrolling. There's so much stuff. Just kidding. Okay, so testing React apps, we've got the repository here. Like all of them, this is open source 100%. So feel free to go through this material on your own if you like to do that. That's totally welcome. We have some awesome contributors. This fellow right here, Christian, I don't know if you're watching, but my goodness, Christian's done a ton of contributions here. So big shout out to Christian. And Emmanuel, I'm not sure how to say your name. I'm sorry. But this guy made a pull request to every single one of the workshops, correcting my improper use of its with an apostrophe, and and more than that, like lots of spelling mistakes and stuff. There are tons of pull requests one day from this guy. So anyway, I'm super thrilled that these are open source, that people are contributing to make things better. So yeah, let's talk about this. This one's actually unique across all of the other workshops. This one is not an app that you interact with like the other ones. Like for example, React Performance. The app is like an application with the background information and the exercise and final, and you've got these tabs and all that. The testing one is you spend most of your time in the terminal, and so it didn't make sense to make a full app. And so we do have an app for it, testing React apps.netlify.app, but it's like totally basic, and the entire purpose of it is for you to at least be able to see examples of the things that you're testing, so you can pull up the dev tools and whatever. But yeah, most of your time is going to be spent in your editor in the terminal. So with that as kind of the backdrop, let's take a look at, let me find testing React apps. Sorry, I normally have this up and going, but I didn't today. And I also need to fix the font size. So if you'll bear with me one moment while I get that fixed. Livestream settings, here we go. Okay. Great. So, and actually, I can probably show you just the testing React apps. Well, no, I'll just show you this outline here. So the first exercise, sorry, I'm still cleaning up things. Let me move stuff out of the way. Yeah, so here's the first exercise, exercise 1, where we do a simple test with React DOM. So when we have the time for it, when I'm teaching stuff and when something's important enough, I like to make sure that you get a good understanding of the fundamentals of the things that you're working with. So you'll remember from my review of the React Fundamentals workshop how we start with just regular JavaScript, creating DOM nodes with JavaScript before we even start talking about React. That's because I think React and JSX in particular are really foundational and important for you to understand to be effective using the React abstraction. And so when I've got something like that and when we have the time to do that, which is nice in a workshop like this because we have all the time in the world. Okay, maybe not all the time in the world, but we're not like limited to a 4-hour workshop or whatever. But yeah, so when I have something like that, I like to work backward into the abstraction. I don't just give it to you and say, okay, this is the thing, go use this thing. I like to work into it. And so we basically build a miniature version of the abstraction before we actually start using it. In testingjavascript.com, which is like, so we have this testing React apps, and there's also testingjavascript.com, which actually, let me pull that up in incognito so I can see what you would see without a license. Here we have a workshop or a module that's all about the fundamentals of testing JavaScript. Here we actually build Jest, and so we go even deeper into the fundamentals, something that we wouldn't have time for in testing React applications. So with testing React applications, I kind of assume that you know how to configure the tools, or the tools have been configured for you, and you have an understanding of what those tools can do for you. And then I just show you how to use those tools to test React. With testing JavaScript, I make no assumptions about your experience with testing, and we start right from the very beginning. And so that's kind of, if you have no experience with testing or you want to level up on your testing understanding, testing JavaScript is by far and away the best place to do that on the internet. But if you already feel pretty comfortable with testing and you just want to know how to test React, then this is going to be enough for you. Sorry, I should have mentioned that before I started jumping into the review, because that's a very common question, like, what should I get? Get both. So yes, so our first exercise, we start without any abstraction beyond what you're used to with React DOM. So you want to like render some UI to a user, you're going to use React DOM.render to do that. And so in here, I kind of talk a little bit about some of my philosophy behind testing, the guiding principle behind the testing library and everything. And then we get into the exercise, which is the counter component. It's pretty simple component, pretty simple test. Like the test itself is quite short. Here, I'll show you the finished version really quick. So it's pretty short, but oh shoot, I just hit Command Q instead of Command W. So here it comes. Yeah, so it's pretty simple, but there are a handful of problems, and then we deal with each one of these problems in the extra credit, and then we level up to React Testing Library to deal with some more of those problems. And I'm the author of React Testing Library, in case you weren't aware, so I have a pretty good idea of the right way to use it to be effective. And yeah, and so I show you how to use React Testing Library, the latest and greatest ideas and concepts. We bring in Jest DOM for assertions. And then in exercise 3, we talk about avoiding implementation details, which is actually surprisingly difficult to, or it's surprisingly unnatural, I guess is what I should say. A lot of people, maybe it's just the experienced folks who are just used to testing implementation details, and maybe for the new folks it just makes a lot more sense, because frankly it does make a lot more sense to test implementation detail free, but maybe, I don't know, it seems to be pretty hard for especially experienced folks. And so I talk about it, I show you examples and give you some challenges to help you avoid testing implementation details in this exercise. We add user event, which is another testing library package that's fantastic. And then we move on to testing forms, because forms is kind of like a big thing in the web. And so I show you how to test a simple form. We talk about mocks with Jest mock. We generate test data, which is always a good idea. And then we kind of hone our abstraction on test generation. It's pretty cool on the test data generation. I leverage that heavily in the tests that I write. And then we talk about mocking HTTP requests. That's a really big thing. And like, we are just in a beautiful world of being able to do this effectively thanks to MSW. And so I show you how to use MSW, and we leverage that heavily when we get into the testing section of the Build React Apps workshop, which we'll talk about in 2 more live streams. I think that's next week. So yeah, give you a nice background example of that, and then you can jump into the exercise. And then we've got some extra credit for you too. So yeah, reusing server request handlers is kind of cool. Testing unhappy path using inline snapshots for error messages. This is actually one of my favorite uses of snapshot testing, is for error messages. I love that, and it works really nicely. So I show you how to do that, and then show you how to how does my component react when the server fails, gives me a 500 error or something. I show you how to simulate that sort of behavior with MSW. It's very cool what you can do with MSW. And then we move on to exercise 6, which is mocking browser APIs and modules. So sometimes you have browser APIs that are don't exist in JS DOM because we're running everything in Node. And so sometimes you can get away with mocking things out, and other times it's just better off, like for a drag and drop situation, to use Cypress instead. And we don't talk about Cypress in this workshop, but we actually do have an exercise for Cypress in the Build Epic React Applications workshop, which we'll talk about again sometime next week. Yeah, and then we also talk about mocking modules, which is also very important. And then I give you exercises for mocking both of those things. So you can enjoy that. Mocking is something that you shouldn't normally do a whole lot, but you sometimes absolutely have to do for like HTTP requests and different things that aren't supported in the environment that you're testing with. So yeah, and then we've got testing with context and a custom render method. So most applications, you're going to have a router. You're going to maybe, if you're using CSS and JS, you'll have a theme provider. You also have like an auth provider and all of these different context providers. And it's this is such a common question, but the solution is so simple. It's basically like often you'll get a warning, hey, you can't render a link without a router. And so the solution is, well, add the router. And then boom, everything works magically. So yeah, I give you a little bit of background on how to do that effectively with the wrapper API. I show you how to make a custom render method so you never even have to think about it. And then in the building Epic React applications, we actually build a custom render method that includes all of the app providers so you can see what this is like in a real world scenario. So very, very cool ability to actually see how that works in a real world. Yeah, so this one's actually pretty small and simple as well. So here's the even all the extra credit done right here. But you do get exposure to making assertions on the style of something, which is kind of interesting. A lot of people will ask about that. I don't typically recommend making those types of assertions. Sometimes it's useful, but and in this case, because we're testing a theme, that does sort of make sense. But it's generally better to test visual stuff with visual regression testing, which we don't get into. And if I ever do teach something like that, that will probably go into testingjavascript.com rather than in Epic React. But in any case, yeah, learning how to test a component that leverages some context is a pretty common question, and it's answered here. And then finally, we talk about testing custom hooks, because some of you probably want to make a custom hook and make a library out of it, or maybe you have a custom hook in your application that is just used all over the place. You want to test it in isolation. So I show you how to test that. And this one's actually quite cool because I show you a couple of different approaches to testing. First off, I show you, yeah, like the easiest and most straightforward way to do that is to make a test component. But then there are sometimes it's hard to make a test component that leverages all the features of your hook. And so then your test component gets to be really complicated. It makes your test really complicated. And so we actually start creating a fake component, and then we build up to finally bringing in React Hooks testing library. So this is, again, building the abstraction that we're going to use. And so I show you both of these approaches using React Hooks testing library, and I just realized that, oh no, this is right. This is good. Yeah, and so I show you both. You can either create a custom component and test that component, the component that uses your hook. And that's actually typically the easier way to go. Or you can use React Hooks testing library for situations where it's hard to make a test component that leverages all the features of your hook. So anyway, that's what we cover in this workshop. It's a lot of stuff. It's very fun because we all know that testing is our favorite. And yeah, that's everything that I have to share about testing React applications. I'm happy to accept any questions or comments that you have really quick before I wrap things up. So let me just bring this over here and answer any questions or comments that people may have. What up, Jacob? Thank you for joining. Yeah. Woohoo! This is great. I'm loving this. And Jacob, you've also been super helpful. So thank you for all of your help. Yeah, nice. How do you test radio button and checkboxes in React testing library? Yeah, so you would use user event.click because that's what the user is doing is they're clicking on the checkbox, clicking on the radio button. And then testing library jest DOM has assertions for whether a checkbox is clicked or checked or not, and a radio button. So that's how we do it. And I think actually, if you go to the Bookshelf app, and we'll go to our components, in here we have the status button, or no, it's rating, and that's a radio button. If we go to the tests, rats, we don't have a test for the rating, but we do actually interact with the rating in some of our integration tests. We just don't have a unit test for it. But you could write that. That would be totally cool and definitely welcome. We just don't actually cover it, which just kind of takes the wind out of my sails just a little bit because I was going to show you like, oh, go look at this. But yeah, we don't have that. But we do cover it in our integration test. So I can show you that really quick. So in the book screen here, no, we don't cover it in our integration test. All right. We need to increase the test coverage of this thing, especially since the rating component is actually surprisingly complex. So yeah, if somebody wants to write tests for this, they're more than welcome to. We just never, I guess, got around to covering that in the workshop material. But I promise we cover a ton of stuff. There's a ton to cover. So. But yeah, it's pretty simple. You like go get it's just an input, right? So you get it by its role with the name of, rating or whatever. Oh, you know what? We do cover it. We cover it in our end-to-end tests. I knew that we covered it. So we cover it with Cypress. It is covered. We have confidence. This application is solid. We just didn't end up covering it with a unit or integration test. Anyway, so you go get the button, you click on it with user event, and then you can assert whatever you need to, or maybe if it's controlled and you do something else, you can go find it and make sure it's clicked on or whatever, or checked is the word. So yeah, great question. Yeah, and testing playground. My goodness, this thing is awesome. It will help you a huge deal trying to find the best way to test stuff. So you're like, just paste in your HTML right here. It'll render it out right here, and then you click around, and it will update this code right here to show you the best way to find that element, which is awesome. And interesting, actually, because you'll notice that here we have the email address. It's saying, hey, get by role, text box, name, email address. And then you have the password, and this one's going to say get by label text. And this is because for security reasons, I guess, passwords do not have an implicit role. And that's super annoying, but that's the way the browsers work. They don't give an implicit role to password inputs for some weird security reason. I don't know why. But anyway, that's a fascinating thing. And we do run into that in the workshop too. But yeah, testing playgrounds, the bomb. It's awesome. Okay, so here's Jacob. Is there a plan in the future? Not a promise. I like saying this. A plan, not a promise. I will give promises. I do give promises. I just don't give promises when I'm not actually promising anything. So for a module in testing for Cypress, or is there too much overhead? Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, you probably heard me say that there is an exercise, pretty substantial exercise at the end of building Epic React applications, which you can observe right there. End-to-end testing. This is using Cypress, and there are a bunch of extra credits in there too. That should give you like everything you need to get up and going. But if you really want to get a solid foundation on testing, then testing JavaScript is the place to be for sure. So yep, great question. Custom matchers, yeah, they're great. Yes, okay. So the plan is to keep things updated. This is another one of my plan, not a promise situations. And just like what Jacob is saying, I am planning on keeping it updated and adding additional content. I was actually, I'll just mention it here. This is still another plan, not a promise. I'm not 100% sure how this is going to turn out, but I'm kind of thinking about doing a total revamp of testingjavascript.com. So I'm in the process of updating some of the videos and adding some stuff in there like, hey, this has changed or whatever, because it's been like a year and there are a couple of small changes that have a big impact. In fact, just yesterday I updated all the repos and pushed the latest recommendations. And I'm adding another lesson in there for MSW now that MSW is a thing. And all of that will be totally free for existing license holders, just like last time I updated. But I am kind of thinking about doing a total revamp of testing JavaScript to make it more like EpicReact, where testing JavaScript is, here's a bunch of videos, go watch these, and then apply it to what you learned to your own project. And it works great. People love it. They've learned a ton. But EpicReact is something special, and it really is like you will learn this stuff and you can't help it sort of thing. And I want to make testing JavaScript that way. But if I do that, that's going to take probably a year or longer for me to do that, because I need to basically do all of those modules and create them as workshops. And then like with exercises and challenges and everything, just like EpicReact is. And then I need to deliver those as workshops a couple of times to make sure that the material is solid before I can actually record it. And because that's such an enormous effort, I think that will be a paid upgrade for existing license holders. So you'll always have access to what you have right now. So if you have testing JavaScript, you'll always keep the videos that you have today and the ones that I'm going to add here in just a few weeks. But if I do end up doing a full revamp, then that will be a paid upgrade. Existing license holders will get an enormous discount to do that upgrade. But yeah, that's the plan right now. I don't expect to ever do something like that with EpicReact because EpicReact is at the spot where I'm happy with that, and I don't know how I could improve that any much more. But yeah, so I do plan on adding things to EpicReact over time, and that it's most likely, this is another plan, not a promise, but most likely existing license holders will just get all of those things as they come in. And it's quite possible and also likely that the base price for EpicReact will go up, but it's unlikely that existing license holders of EpicReact will ever have to pay extra for the new material. That's the plan right now. Okay, cool. So, loving these constant live streams. It's so fun. And it is draining. Yes, if I look tired, it's because I am. I'm exhausted. What will the streaming schedule be like once we've reviewed each workshop? So I don't have a schedule. I do have my office hours every Monday and Thursday. So I'll have office hours later today, and I'm planning on keeping that up. I have it scheduled out for the rest of the year. I'm planning on doing that, barring Christmas or whatever. And I don't have any plans to stop at the end of the year. That's just as far as I scheduled the Zoom meetings out for. So yeah, at least twice a week I'll be just doing Q&A stuff, answering people's questions, and you share your screen with me and we can peer program on stuff. Pair program. I don't know why peer program. Anyway, and then I pretty much just kind of live stream. I'll probably start doing more of my live streams just like off the cuff in my Kent Live channel here. That's where I was doing it before, and only when I wanted a recording would I do it through YouTube like this. So anyway, I like doing it within Discord because it's fun. We have like more interaction. There's not a 15-second delay. The problem with that is then it's not recorded, which is a bummer. So maybe I can do Zoom because then it's recorded and there's more back and forth. Anyway, I'm not sure about how the live streams are going to be when I'm done reviewing the workshops. I'm kind of thinking I'll take a bit of a break because I'm really tired. This launch has been epic. But yeah, that's kind of the fun. And the things that I'll be working on are the things that I'll live stream. So before Epic React was launched, I was working on the bot for the Discord, and so you would see a lot of live streams about the bot. I do plan on still working on the bot a little bit. There are plenty of features that I want to add to it. But I'm going to be ramping up some Epic React workshops for TypeScript probably, and I'll probably live stream some of that. Yeah, so it's just like whatever I'm working on is what I live stream. I don't plan on scheduling anything, those kinds of live streams. Office hours are scheduled, but yeah, like regular, I'm just working on this thing, come check it out with me. That's why I have the notification role. So if you want to add yourself to that, then you can say, let's see, what is it? Roles, help. Yeah, here it is. So yeah, you can say roles add Kent live or roles remove office hours. Yeah, it just allows you to add yourself to those roles so that you can be notified when I live stream. So if you want to be notified, you can say roles add Kent live, and that will notify you when I'm live streaming. So anyway, great question. Jonathan, any tips about when to go for integration versus unit? Yeah, this is a pretty common question, Jonathan, and it's so common that I have a blog post about it. And actually, here, let me see if this works. I've got a cool bot. It is, or a bot command, thanks to Marco, who's been doing awesome stuff. But let's do blog integration. Let's see. Oh man, there are too many results. All right, unit. Let's see, static versus unit versus integration. Let's try that. Okay, blog. That should just get us one result. There it is. That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, this blog post will give you kind of what I mean when I use these terms and what types of tests or what types of things you cover given each one of these tests. And yeah, my philosophy is that you get the most bang for your buck using integration tests. And it just occurred to me that this should probably be rewritten to use MSW. So if anybody wants to update this to switch it from mocking fetch to MSW, because I don't recommend that. In fact, blog mock fetch. Stop mocking fetch. Yeah, so I need to stop mocking fetch in my own blog post. But yeah, so most of your time is spent with integration tests. If there's a certain part of your component that you're like, oh, that's kind of edge casey, and I want to make sure that that is covered and it never breaks or whatever. Or like if that breaks, it causes weird breakages for my integration tests that make them hard to debug. Then that's a good situation to switch over and try a unit test, like a more focused unit test for that thing. So very good. Let's see here. Cypress. Yeah, it's good stuff. Read the blog post that I just shared. All right, there you go. Yeah, there is a fuzzy line between unit integration tests. I actually don't use, when I'm talking about testing components, it's kind of hard to describe the difference between a unit and integration test. And so even in Epic React, I don't really call it a unit test. I call it a component test, don't I? Hold on a second. I thought one of these I said component testing. Somewhere I refer to it as component testing. Maybe it's in like the description or something. But anyway, yeah, like some people could see testing a component by itself as unit testing. But if you're using React and all of the hooks and everything, and you're like rendering that to the DOM, is that really a unit test? Like a unit test would be mocking out all of its dependencies, right? That would be a unit test. But who in the right mind would do that? Nobody. You shouldn't do that. That would be ridiculous. And so that's kind of why I loosely apply the term unit test to even that type of a test. But it really, it's more of a component test. And so yeah, there's a fuzzy line. The way that I separate it in my mind and in the workshop is if I'm rendering just that one component, then it's a unit test, even if it renders other components below it. If I'm rendering an entire page or the entire app and just navigating to a page, that is an integration test. And in the testing React apps is where like the rubber really meets the road. as far as like these different distinctions. And so here in the source directory under tests book screen, you'll see that I'm actually pulling in the entire app, the app component that has like all of the things, and I'm rendering that with my utility render, which is coming from my test utils. You'll learn about all of this stuff when you go through this part of the workshop. But yeah, so when I'm rendering the whole app, and I'm specifying a route to go to, so it just renders the part of the app that I care about. Yeah, when I'm rendering the whole app, then I'm considering that an integration test. When I render a single component, then I consider that a unit test or a component test. And then we also talk about like just general unit tests. We have the API client, and we write these tests as part of the workshop as well. So we do like non-React testing in here too for the bookshelf app. So yeah, as far as like if this comes up in an interview, you're really like you're in trouble if this comes up in an interview, because let's say you take 10 interviews and each one of them ask you, every single one of those people will define these terms differently. So yeah, sorry. It's unfortunate the way that is. Yeah, it's kind of stupid. Anyway, that's why I don't put a whole lot of stock into the terms necessarily. I'm more interested in how can I write tests that bring me confidence when I ship code. That's what I'm trying to do. So, thank you for answering that, Jacob. Yeah, revamping the whole thing would take forever. Yeah, I mean that's like a year project. Yeah, testing JavaScript 2. That's actually what I've referred to it as, testing JavaScript v2. It would be great, and I think I'll probably do it. I think that's probably going to happen sometime next year. So if you start seeing a lot of workshops coming from me, like that I schedule for testing stuff, that's what's happening. So I have testing keyboard accessibility tips. Yeah. So no, I don't do that. Yeah, that's a little bit tricky. So you can do that if you want to, especially if you're using user event. That should make it a lot easier to test those kinds of things. But I typically just rely on using semantic HTML and trusting that the browser is going to treat that properly. So instead of putting an on-click on a div, I put an on-click on a button. And instead of treating, making an anchor tag and styling that or like treating that like a button, I use just a regular button. So as far as like testing, automated testing of that, I don't really do automated testing of keyboard accessibility. Although maybe I should. It is possible. With user event, there's the tab utility, and so you can tab around, and it will, it does its best. Maybe there are bugs, but I'm pretty sure it's quite accurate. But you can have it tab around, and you can hit enter and different things like that. And so if you want to, it's possible. I just don't do it a lot. I don't think it's a bad thing. You could totally it goes right along with the way that you think about prioritizing your work. So is it that important that your keyboard accessibility is top notch and you don't regress on that? If it is, then that's great. And do that. Aw, thanks. You're both nice. Sweet. Cool. All right. So thanks everybody. I hope that was helpful and useful. I'm going to wrap things up now. So feel free to throw last couple of questions in there if you have them, but I'll just say a couple of things. EpicReact is awesome. I'm super glad that it's out there and people are going through it. People are loving it. And that is really validating because I spend a lot of time on this. And it's 20% off. It is worth the full price. So 20% off is a killer deal. Give that a look for sure before it's gone in 5 days and 13 hours. Go talk to your boss. Get it for your whole team. You'll all be on the same page. You'll all be rock solid awesome with React, which is great. Tomorrow I am going to be live streaming about the EpicReact.Dev React Suspense workshop, which is going to be kind of fun. That one's pretty experimental stuff going on there. I'm looking forward to that for sure. And then my live stream after that will be next week, talking about the Epic React app. That one will probably be a very long live stream because that's actually 4 workshops in one. So yeah, we'll look forward to that for sure. And then there was something else that I was going to mention about all of this, but it slipped my mind. So we're just going to let it go. Let's just get the last minute questions if we've got anything in here. Yeah, bum-ba-da-dum. Very good. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you have a marvelous day, and we will see you in the future. I just had to come back and say Harley tells you to get the course, so go get the course. All right, see ya.